everybody, and welcome back to Odin's Movie Blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope everyone is doing well out there. Let me go ahead and just get started off with the patrons so that I don't forget. First off, huge shout out to Dion, one of my patrons. Next up, we have A Grey Jedi, Adam Shawhan, Albertus, Delete System 32, Edward Coleman, Enrique Evangelista, Entertainment Hacker, Frank the Tank and the Shawhan Wiener Dog Clan, Harold Francis the Hunka Chunka Funka Monkey, Inflamed Wood, Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jeffrey Toon, Jonathan, Laura Story, Matthew Kadish, Mr. Peabody, and his evil twin, Outpost Dyer, Perpetual Punster, Projar Sarif, Proper Jeremy, Shanglong, Sir Lance Elato, Theodora, the DJD Show, Those Two Ball Guys, Tina B, and Wolfgang, Lounge, and Mary, Vidalis Mayhem, dropping off a $2 donation. Whoops, forgot this was the proper route to do it from now on. OL business handled. Well, Mary, thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate it. Always appreciate the donations. Always helpful. What we got going on here? We got going on here. Mark Larsis says, do you watch American Gods since you star in it? No, I do not. I've heard good things about it. Mr. Peabody, what's going on, dude? MCOC Josh, what's going on, bruv? What's going on? Greta, how is it going? Tina, damn right. I took care of it. Tina. Greetings, all father, says Alex Martinez. Jim Smith, what's going on? Gannison, what's going on, my bruv? Let's see. Hello, my lord. What's going on? It's Trap Productions. Dalton Mortimer. Hello, good sir. How art thou? 8-Bit Snake Boy, what's going on, bruv? Hound 3000, Woof Woof Odin, everyone, what's going on, bruv? Retro Jesus, what is going on from El Salvador? Well, hello, greetings from El Salvador. Thank you so much for joining us here in the States. Slicer says, any chance you can fusion dance with Clownfish TV so I can watch both streams? Unfortunately, I cannot, but I understand if your loyalties are split, and I am not hurt if you decide to go in that direction. But, guys, I've been doing some maths. And you know what happens when Odin starts doing some maths? There starts to be some brainstorming, and there starts to be a lot of theories and thoughts and speculation. Sometimes the speculation leads in a correct direction. Sometimes it doesn't. However, there is some fishy stuff going on with the Captain Marvel box office numbers. Things that I, as a sad rookie, it seems, had totally forgotten about and totally blanked out on when we got those box office numbers for the weekend. Now, there's no denying that the numbers are extremely high. It's already broken even. It's already making profit. However, here's what I figured out. Wookiee Lives Matter. What's going on? The thing that I have discovered is that this is, from my research so far, the only, or rather the first MCU film to get an opening in every major foreign market on the same day, which explains why it made over $300 million at the foreign box office. And everyone was like, oh my God, this movie is a giant hit because it made over $300 million. Well, of course it made over $300 million, seeing that it opened in every single market. The way that most movies work, and you can see this from other big MCU films. Infinity War, for example, had a gigantic foreign take. However, it did not open in China on the same day. It opened in China later on. You look to, Black Panther also opened in China about a month later and opened in Saudi Arabia, Japan as well. Opened up in various countries on different dates. Captain Marvel, on the other hand, opened in literally every major market except for Japan, which Japan actually only maxes out around $10 million in Nigeria, which is not known for being a big moneymaker. So basically what they were able to do was that they were able to somehow, some way, Disney was able to book the theaters in every major market, every major country on the same weekend. And that explains why it had such a massive opening weekend, because when you actually look at the domestic totals are actually pretty standard fare. Like, seriously, it's a pretty standard opening for not only an MCU film, but also just for a general big box office release as well. There's really nothing special about it. It was that foreign total that everyone's like, oh my God, this movie's doing bank overseas. Well, now we know why. We know why now, because it opened in every single foreign market. I don't know why I didn't look at that beforehand. I don't know why I didn't even think to look into it. But the reason why I think that's important is because in most situations, for most movies, it opens up over time. Normally it opens up in a lot of markets on one date and then opens up in other markets a month down the line, sometimes just a couple weeks down the line. And because of that, you see that it's a way for them to try and basically pace themselves to continue to make money. Again, that's what we call in the industry having legs, continuing to make money even after the release. The problem with this, though, is that by opening on the same exact day in almost every single market, at least every single major market plus some, what they've now done is they've now pretty much denied having the ability to have legs. In fact, coming up this weekend, it's going to open up in Japan and Nigeria. So what my guess is, and again, this is pure speculation on my part, but it's only because you've seen other movies and you've seen how other movies have drop-offs. But the ways that those drop-offs are able, especially in the foreign market, are able to be kind of tempered and controlled is by saying, okay, well, it's opened in the second weekend in this country, but now it's going to be opening in the first weekend in this country. And so therefore, what you're able to do is you're able to kind of control the flow. You're kind of able to keep the interest out there and keep everything going. And this is something that I actually said, though I didn't really understand it fully when I was saying it. I remember how I had said before that it was obvious that they were front-loading this movie, that the pre-sales were just so high, astronomically high. And it was like, okay, so everyone's going to show up opening weekend. That makes a lot of sense. Even when you go to the opening weekend, it opened at what, $153 million? Let me just go back to $153 million. $20 million of that came from the Thursday night showings, meaning that the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday was around $130 million, which, again, is a very strong start. But it's not nearly as much as you would think that it would be, especially when they were saying, oh, it could be over $200 million. It's going to be this massive opening. And yes, I said that $150 million would sound kind of ridiculous, but when you take into account the Thursdays, it only opened technically $133 million, which is actually less than that 150. This is all me to say that I honestly believe, because everything was so front-loaded, because everything was so heavy-handed in the front, and also, and this is just some more news. I don't know if you've been following it, because I've been following this on Twitter. There's a couple really cool, really great accounts on Twitter that follow specifically the China box office. What's interesting to me is that on Sunday in China, the box office dropped 35% for Captain Marvel. Following up that, it had one of the largest drops from Sunday to Monday for any other opening weekend. In fact, Alita Battle Angel, we all know that film, did better in its Sunday to Monday drop than Captain Marvel did. The reason why I point that out is because it seems to me, especially with that massive 35% drop on Sunday, which was a lot higher. Again, the industry insider said that's so much higher than what they thought it was going to be. And then Saturday, it was only a 5% boost, and that was very much under what they expected. I think that we're going to see a massive drop-off in China. I think that we could end up seeing 70-80% drop-off in China. Again, these are just numbers that I'm throwing out there. I have no other proof other than just a gut feeling, but also, again, just looking at history itself and looking at the signs and looking at just the current trends of what's going on in China, but also reminding myself that it's opened now in every market. There are no other markets that can come in and give it any more money. And so the reason why I bring that up is because, yes, this has broken even. Yes, this is now also making profit. However, this is all like seriously, these are the only markets that it has at its, to its credit. These are the only markets that it has available to open up in. And so what I'm seeing here, and this is also based off another thing, what I'll get into in a second. But basically what I think is going to happen is I think we're going to see a massive drop-off, not only in China, but also in all other foreign markets. Because guess what? Guess what happens after opening weekend in any foreign market? There's a drop-off. So now you have a $300 million opening, and you've just opened in all these markets. Well, now you're also going to have a drop-off in those same markets. And because you have all of those markets dropping off in week 2 at the same time, which is something that you wouldn't normally have in another opening, I think that opening drop-off is going to be a much higher one. In fact, everyone's saying, oh my gosh, the records that were broken. I think there's the potential for this to be a record-breaking drop-off for any MCU film. And again, it very well could not be the case. If this film has legs, if this film is able to continue on and continue going strong, and next weekend's the best weekend for that, I mean, Disney made sure of that because there's no major movies really coming out this coming week. It's not until next week that we have Us coming out. That would be the only real competition that's going to have. So basically, it's going to go, once again, really unmatched for this next week. However, the reason why I suspect that it might not do as well second weekend, let alone third week, is because of its per theater total. So I did a little bit of math as well, looking at the domestic markets. And I don't know if you realize this, but when you look at how much it made per theater, so you know how every release of a movie gets, 4,000 theaters. And we're talking domestically here. 4,000 theaters, 4,310 theaters, 4,349 theaters. Well, you're able then to break down how much money it made per theater that it was released in. And so that can tell you a pretty good metric of how well it's actually doing at the overall theaters. And so, how we were hearing all the talk and saying, oh yeah, I'm going into this movie and it seems like half the theater's empty and it seems like all these theaters are empty, etc. I seem to see now a number that might actually support that mindset just based off of the amount of theaters that are being present. And so I'll give you an example of that. So out of nine MCU films, keep in mind there's 21 MCU films. Out of 9, Captain Marvel had the ninth most movies, or rather money per theater. So it's in the bottom of that pack. So the top 9, it's last. In the top 9, as far as money per theater, it's dead last. Again, at number 9. Now, obviously, I know there's other MCU films, but still, for the sake of this argument, I think it's worth talking out because everyone's saying how it's comparing to other movies. How it's going to compare to Black Panther. How it's going to compare to, Age of Ultron, Iron Man 3. That was the other one that was brought into the discussion. But here's the thing: it made $35,000 per theater, which is almost half of what Black Panther made per theater at around $50,000. Maybe not half, sorry. Which is about maybe a third. I can't do math sometimes when it comes to just on-the-spot stuff. But anyway, it made $35,000 per theater. Black Panther did $50,000 per theater. And not only that, it did $50,000 per theater and also came out in less theaters. So it had a better money per theater and also came out in less theaters overall. So you look at that. You also look to the fact that there are 3 other films that came out in less theaters than Captain Marvel did that actually had a better per theater total, including Ultron, which had $46,000 per theater, Iron Man 3 with $43,000 per theater, and Civil War with $44,000 per theater. What I'm trying to point out here, what I'm trying to say, is that yes, the domestic number overall is pretty high, but that makes sense when it has one of the highest theater releases in the U.S. from the MCU. It came out in 4,310 theaters. The only 2 movies on here that had more theaters were Infinity War and the first Avengers film. So you had this film that had all of the theaters that it could possibly get, and even though it had all of those theaters, it still only made $35,000 per theater. And so I'm looking at that number and I'm saying, okay, so it's obviously not doing as well at the actual theaters themselves. So yeah, it might have made all the money, but guess what? That makes sense because it was released at a crap ton of theaters. So literally any person who wanted to go would never find a sold out show, would just be able to go whenever the hell they wanted. So it makes a lot of sense that, again, you see this kind of low total, and this is just domestically. You add on top of that the fact that it opened up in every foreign market, and you add on top of that the fact that it seems to be falling in China already with its 35% drop-off on Sunday, and then its further drop-off on Monday, which is, from what I've heard, again, from these sources, is one of the worst drop-offs in MCU history from a Sunday to Monday. I think that we're seeing ourselves a very, very interesting story because, yes, this film had a massive opening, and no one's going to deny that fact. I'm not going to deny that fact. This movie made so much money that it's already profitable, and that is something worth talking about. However, from the very beginning said that this movie was going to be profitable. I had a question as far as how much money it was going to make. My original range was between $450 and $650. Now, if we see these massive drop-offs, especially in China and other countries, seeing that all the drop-offs are going to happen at the same time for the same weekend and will continue to go in pace with each other and won't be spread out over different months and different weeks, I think that we're going to see a massive fall-off. Now, that's just me. That's just based off of this quick math I did. The fact that domestically, it did not have nearly as good money per theater. I think that's a major issue when it comes to the domestic totals, and also adding on to the fact that it had probably one of the biggest foreign openings of all time, meaning as far as opening in almost every other country possible on the same date, which is very unlikely, with the two, of course, exceptions being Japan, which is about a $10 million number right there, and of course also Nigeria, just to give you kind of a mindset to what, let me try and just pull that up for you a sec. For Nigeria, let's see if I can pull this up by country. So for comparison, Black Panther, did Black Panther even open in Nigeria? According to Box Office Mojo, it didn't even open in Nigeria. That's interesting. But let's see. What was the other one? Japan. So in Japan, it made $14 million. Black Panther, which made $1.3 billion worldwide. So that kind of gives you an idea that Japan, it's going to give it a little bit of money. It's going to give a little bit of cushion. But again, guys, I think that in its opening weekend, it's already made the cap of what it's going to make. And I think that almost all but guarantees a massive drop-off. And if we see a massive drop-off, we could potentially see this film peter out. And not only peter out, but peter out so quickly that the billion-dollar dream that it had the potential for might dissipate. I don't know. That's just me. So anyway, let me go ahead and get to the comments at this point. I do have a... I do have a super chat here, but also before that, Christopher W. Hearn, welcome to the channel. Sapphire TCSN, welcome to the channel. And let's see, Klein Dropper, welcome to the channel, and thank you for the super chat. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed. I thought Marvel fans had standards, but they appear to be mindless zombies willing to consume garbage. Let's see what the drop-off is. I'm right there with you, Klein Dropper. I think that the drop-off is where we're going to see, because again, beforehand, as of this weekend, I totally admit I was saying, hey guys, look, I was wrong. I was wrong in my predictions. I was not reading the market correctly. However, two things can be true at once. I honestly believe that the fan backlash for this is indeed a real thing. However, I think that it was covered by the fact that it was opened in a almost record number of theaters. Not just that, a record number of IMAX theaters. That I do know for a fact. Again, it wasn't the record number of total theaters because Infinity War and a couple others had higher theater counts, but it did open up in a record number of IMAX theaters, and it did also open up in a gigantic amount of 3D theaters. And because of all these factors, and also looking at, even with all of that though, its take per theater was very low. That to me says, okay, so yeah, it's making money, but that's because you have literally just put it into all of these theaters, and on top of that, you've also let it open on the same day in every single foreign country that's going to bring in money. So I'm looking at these numbers, and I'm looking at the overall sentiment, and honestly, I cannot, for the life of me, and Tim Pool did a really great video on this. I keep yelling out Tim Pool, but he's been covering this Captain Marvel stuff, and he's pretty much shown why the entire narrative that was done by the media saying, oh my gosh, it was a review bombing, and that's why the numbers on Rotten Tomatoes were so bad. He was basically showing it's like, no, that's factually inaccurate. And the best way he explained that was, look at Metacritic. The critic rating is at a 64. Look at the audience rating. It's at a 59. That's very close to each other. And also on top of that, it was already revealed by Sci-Fi Wire that these reviewers, these critics, will cook their books, will cook their reviews in order to save their access. So in my mind, what I'm seeing here is that, no, I think that there is a large number of people that are upset with this and are pushing away from this and are boycotting this. And I think that it'll actually show more so in that second weekend drop-off than anywhere else. Because if this film has one of the greatest openings of all time, okay, that's great. But if it's not able to have legs, if it's not able to continue to make money down the line, at that point then, again, it's already profitable. So it's not like it's going to bust. It's not going to bust. It's already made a profit. That is a done deal. But it looks like we could find ourselves in a situation where the film peters out so much that it only gets to maybe the $650 or $700 million range. That all the people were saying, oh, it's going to make $1 billion. We're forgetting the fact that, again, domestically, the per theater number was not very good. Most of the people who are going to support it, who are going to see it opening weekend, have already seen it. And I would say that there's definitely evidence to suggest that the reaction is mixed at best. And that's going to affect next week's numbers. And if it's already not having good money per theater numbers, that doesn't bode well. If it made $35,000 per theater this week and there's going to be a drop-off, I mean, yeah. Oh, man, it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. Anyway, so sorry, getting into the chat itself. Darwin James WR says, so you're saying we win again, they're padding their numbers, long live the Phantom Menace. I'm not saying that yet. I'm not claiming any type of victory. That is not what this is meant to do. What this is meant to say is that there is now something else going on here. And this is not conspiracy. This is just, again, looking at the numbers themselves, looking at the history of the fact that this type of release in a foreign market is very rare, that you get all of the, you get all the fact that they're able to get China to release on the same day, that they're able to convince China to release their movie on the same day as everywhere else, that's something that's very hard. China normally likes to do things on its own pace. So to me, that automatically, because remember, normally when you look to these MCU films, and again, I'll bring back up, let's see, I'll bring back up Black Panther. Black Panther, so everywhere else it released on February 13th in 2018. Some were February 14th or 15th. It did not release in China until March 9th. So China does whatever it wants, essentially. However, think about that for a second. Think about had China opened, which it opened with $65 million. And that's, of course, after it had been out for a few weeks. So who knows if anyone was, trying to, steal anything. But it had already made, prior to that, in the countries it did release in, $169 million in its opening weekend foreign market. You add $60 million to that, you're looking at over $220 million opening weekend, which means, guess what? It would have had an over $400 million opening weekend. Oh, my God. Can you imagine the success? But just because it's made that much money there doesn't mean that it's going to automatically mean success. Black Panther was a little bit different because Black Panther had legs. Because also Black Panther had a delayed release in China as well. And so to me, what I'm reading from all of this is that it looks to me, and this is not conspiracy. I'm not going to go into, there are people out there, and let me just put this out. I just want to shut this down right now. I do not believe for a second that Disney is faking their numbers. I do not believe for a second that Disney is trying to claim $303 million and say that that's all that there is to it. And I'm not saying that at all. I do not accept that. To anyone that's saying, oh, but I have pictures of people going to empty theaters, etc. I believe that there were some empty theaters, but guess what? That matches up to the number that I just said, with it only making $35,000 per theater, which is the ninth worst, or rather the ninth best out of all MCU films, which means it's really low, especially when you compare it to the fact that it has some of the highest numbers of theaters that it's being released to. So if it's making the lowest number per theater at one of the highest numbers of theaters in general, then it makes sense then that you're gonna have this patchiness, that you're gonna have it. But also remember, every city, every market's different. So you might have a market or a city that's going to show up in droves and have sold out shows and do very well. Again, the showing that I went to was mostly full. Again, here in New Orleans. I'm not denying the fact that there might be other countries or other cities for that matter that had no one show up. I believe all of those things. What I'm looking at here, though, is I'm looking at a movie that was so front-loaded domestically, with having one of the most number of theaters, 3D, IMAX, etc. Can all of those take into account ticket prices and ticket factors? You also had a very, very powerful media campaign. It was still the MCU machine. Again, regardless of what Brie Larson has said, no one's going to deny the power of the MCU machine. So they were able to get all of those things churning, and on top of that, we're able to get China to release on the same day as everyone else and get everyone on the same page, except for Japan and Nigeria, which I've already said is kind of a nothing burger because, Japan's max is around $10-15 million, and Nigeria, who knows at this point. But what I'm trying to say here is this. I think the front end was so overloaded. And someone on Twitter actually pointed this out, saying that the domestic and foreign differential here, meaning the difference in amounts of money between the domestic opening weekend and the foreign opening weekend being around $150 million, is one of the highest ever. And the reason why is because they front-ended their foreign market. So if the foreign market is not catching on to this movie, if the foreign market is not taking hold of it, and China seems to already, with its Sunday 35% drop-off and then its massive drop-off on Monday after, seems to indicate that it's going to have a massive drop-off in China. And if it drops off in China, it can only maybe get $150 million, which again is respectable, but not nearly as high as they think. I mean, they were thinking it's going to make $200 million in China. If it makes even less than that, who knows? But if we see other countries follow suit and we see other similar drop-offs in those countries, I think it's very likely that what you could see here is potentially a movie going from one of the greatest box office openings in history, not just MCU history, but in history, to one of the worst second weekends in MCU history. One of the largest week 1 to week 2 drop-offs in MCU history. And we're not going to know that until the end of this weekend. So again, I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. But again, looking at those per theater totals, and now they're really not that impressive compared to, again, the fact that 8 other films in the MCU have done better, and a few of them with less theaters. And the fact that we're already seeing the front-ended in, the front loading happening in the foreign market, which is something that's almost unheard of in that way. There's something fishy going on. It's not a conspiracy. But I'd simply think that Disney did a smart move and said, what we're going to do is we're going to front load this movie, try and get this movie as much money as possible, put it as many IMAX theaters, as many 3D theaters as we can, put it in every single theater available that we can get it in the United States, and also get it into every single foreign market, and try and get them all on the same day, try and get this massive show, because we already know the media is going to go and take this story and spin it, and we already got these people going after the film because they don't like the direction we're going in. That's even better, because now we can play against them. Now it can be an us versus them, and now it's going to look better for us because they're the ones that were going after this film, but now it looks like we are the ones who were successful because just look at the numbers. The numbers speak for themselves. Yes, but when you look deeper into the numbers, you see, these numbers were kind of cooked in the first place because it was almost essentially guaranteed that you were going to have a massive box office opening. This is something that I missed in my initial thoughts. Again, I knew this film would break even. Again, I remember my original projection was 450 to 650 million worldwide, so I had already said it was going to make money. But what I failed to realize, and this is something that I'm going to look forward to and look into rather in the future, is when do the movies in the future have release dates in other countries, especially China, since China is one of the largest money makers. It normally accounts for around a third, again, 33% of all big budget films. That's how important China is. And if China has a massive drop-off, keep in mind, The Last Jedi had a 92% drop-off from week 1 to week 2 in China. I'm not saying that this is going to have a 92% drop-off, but what I am saying is that if we're already seeing the Saturday going up only 5% and the Sunday dropping 35% and the Sunday to Monday dropping lower than what Alita did, which made less than what Captain Marvel did on that weekend, I think what we're seeing here is we're seeing a front-loaded movie that could potentially not make nearly as much down the line and could end up petering out and only reaching that $650 million mark. But again, second weekend will tell us. That is when we'll know more information. I just wanted to share this information with you guys before getting into the actual chats and talking to you guys and trying to talk to you about this topic and a variety of other topics. I just wanted to get all of that information out there because, again, the last the reason why I was a little bit late was because I was eating dinner, but also beforehand it was because I was trying to crunch numbers and I want to make sure, because I don't like when I make mistakes. And in the video that I did the other day, I said, hey guys, I was wrong on this. And, I'm going to own up to the fact that I was indeed wrong, but now I know why. And I think that's just as important. It's important to admit when you're wrong, but it's also important to understand, well, why were you wrong? What was the thing? What was the mistake you made? And the mistake that I made was not in underplaying the pre-sales, except for the fact that I underplayed it on the Thursday showing only. but also I did not look to see what theaters were being opened in the foreign markets. So anyway, I find it fascinating. So let me know if in the comments, in the super chats, and anything else, if you want to hear a little bit more about my methodology, or if it didn't make any sense, please let me know. Let me get to the super chats, and then we'll get into the live chat itself. So Chad Engelman, thank you for the super chat, says, do you believe the numbers will be affected from people not seeing the movie more than once? Most who love the MCU will see a movie 2 to 3 times. Yes, I think it'll be affected because, yeah, there are people that like this movie, but there's also, I would say, more people who fit the other two categories. There are a large chunk of people, I'm not going to say a majority, but a large chunk, I would say a sizable chunk of people who either hated or don't want to see the movie in the first place. I would say the largest group of people, based on reviews, based on overall sentiment, are in the meh category. Meaning, hey, I didn't hate it, I didn't like it, I've seen it, I'm ready for Endgame, all right, here we go. And I don't think those two categories, which I think would contain the largest number of people, are going to show up next weekend. And because of that fact, I think that you are indeed going to see a 60 to 65% drop-off, which is actually kind of standard. Again, 50 to 60% drop-off is pretty standard when it comes to these big-budget films. You could see even more than that. And I think that if you see a 65 plus, like over a 65% drop, that's when I start to say, all right, this is something that's definitely going to need to be talked about. But also, if you see a 80% drop in the foreign market, which has potential, especially with China being the biggest chunk of that pie, if China says we're done, or if China has very little interest, you could see numbers as high as that. And it's going to be interesting. Next weekend, we'll have a very good idea about where this movie went, because as of today, the movie has the potential to break $1 billion. I'm just going to say it right now. If the movie has legs, if the movie has moderate drop-offs this coming weekend, it's going to make $1 billion. Calling it right now. But if the drop-offs are as drastic as the numbers seem to indicate they might do, again, just looking again, the domestic per theater total being so low, and also the fact that they front-loaded and front-ended the foreign release, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting for sure. Let's see, Darwin, I got to you. Nitrium, before the chat jumps on me. Nitrium says, what sort of competition for the same demographics does it have over the next few weeks? That's actually a very good question. So what he's asking for is, what kind of competition are we looking at this coming week? So this weekend, there really is no competition going on. The biggest releases that we have are Captive State, which I've never heard of, but it's in 2,200 theaters. 5 Feet Apart, which I've also never heard of, 2,600 theaters. And the biggest one would be Wonder Park with 3,500 theaters. Wonder Park is a Paramount animated movie. It's a movie that has gotten almost no attention from me, at least. I've never seen a trailer for it other than the trailer that I posted on the new website, because there is a new website. It's called ombreviews.home.blog, I think is what the final name is. I'm sure the Valkyrie can link you to it. But that was the last time I actually saw the trailer for it. And I was like, oh, it's coming out soon. I might as well put it on the website. So next weekend, really, there is not much competition. So if it was going to make a lot of money, it would be next weekend. That's why if next weekend we do see even a 60-65% drop, that alone could actually be something really bad, because if it's competing against almost nothing, because Wonder Park is going to do well with the families, do well with the kids. But if that's all we're seeing, I just don't, I can't see that. I cannot see how Wonder Park would be able to take it out unless all of the people who were wanting to see the movie already saw it, and the people that did saw it that were like, meh, don't come back. The people who were never going to see it in the first place don't come. And the hardcore fans, the ones that really liked it, maybe didn't like it enough to shell out another $10 to $20 to go see it again. Again, there's a lot of factors at play here, but next week, again, this coming Friday, not a lot of competition, just Wonder Park. It's March 22nd that I think we'll finally see a bigger turnaround, because that is when the movie Us comes out. Jordan Peele's Us, the new horror film, that is going to do very, very well at the box office, for the mere fact that if you had never seen the last Jordan Peele film, Get Out, which I personally loved, I thought it was Obviously I understood that there was a lot of the racial overtones and everything and a lot of the racial commentary, but the fact that he was able to make a good movie with all of those other things implied, I liked. I liked it a lot. I liked a lot of the characters in there. And so Us, even though I don't really have a plan to see it because I don't like scary movies, and just the trailer alone, every time that I see Lupita Nyong'o on the screen I'm like, oh, no. Or anytime I see that little kid with the mask on, I'm like, no, can't do it. So I might go see it, though, just to give it a little bit of support and try and boost the numbers next weekend, so I might do that. But, yeah, so I think Us, March 22nd. I think that could be the movie that finally takes over the #1 spot at the box office, especially if, one, Captain Marvel shows it doesn't have any legs, and two, if we see a massive drop-off in week 2, which would seem to indicate that it doesn't have legs. So by week 3, definitely I can see Us being the #1 movie. And then after that, you got Dumbo. And as much as I don't think we need a Dumbo movie, it's another Disney movie, and I think they're going to give preference to Dumbo because at the end of the day, Marvel is going to be setting up for Endgame. So I think they're trying to make as much money as they can with this weekend that they just had, because obviously they made a bank ton of money and it had no competition. This coming weekend, no competition. It is trying to make the most money that it can. But this is the big but. It's a big but. As one could say, ooh, got big butt. If the drop-off is as drastic as I honestly think it could be, again, just based off of the per theater rating and also based off of the fact that it's opened up in every single market it could possibly open up in, I think that next weekend it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. All right, I'm sure the chat's going to jump on me, and it did, so I'm going to find a comfy place and then pick it up from there. Kyle McDonough says, Odin, I took my daughter to Alita over the weekend on your recommendation. Thank you. Great. We loved it. Oh, awesome to hear that, Kyle. Yeah, seriously, go see Alita Battle Angel. It is a fantastic film. Great story arcs, great characters. CGI is something that I approve, which is something I say very rarely because I'm a huge critic when it comes to CGI. And the CGI is done very, very well on top of all those other things I just said. So very glad that you heard it, that you liked it, Kyle. And if you've not seen Alita Battle Angel and it's still playing in a theater near you, please go check it out. Go give it some love. Go give it some support, because it's movies like that that don't get media protection, that don't get YouTube changing the algorithm, that don't get Rotten Tomatoes, controlling all of the audience scores and trying to fix. So last time I checked, and this is what I said before, people were asking when they were kind of, playing around with the score, people were asking, where do you think the audience score is going to end up? And I said, at the end of the day, they want that number to hit 60%. Because as soon as that number, and it's at 59% right now, as soon as that number hits 60%, from the last time that I checked, the popcorn comes up. So it's no longer spilled popcorn. And I think at that point, they'll be content, they'll be happy. And then at that point, they'll have saved the day from all the internet trolls, which has now, again, just been proven to be false. Seeing that at 59%, again, 59% is very close to the actual critic rating of 68%, 62%, or the Metacritic 65%. Seems to be pretty spot on. The ratings that make no sense at all are the solid A cinema score, which to me just has no basis in reality, and also all of the critics praising a movie that they're being very critical of in their actual handwritten reviews, and the fact that we already know because of the Sci-Fi Wire. Seriously, guys, Nerdrotic, go check out Nerdrotic. Valkyrie, drop a link to Nerdrotic to Gary in the description, or rather in the chat. Nerdrotic was the one that broke this story. For those that don't know, the Sci-Fi Wire does a podcast, and on the Sci-Fi Wire podcast, there was a movie reviewer who submits reviews to Rotten Tomatoes. And in the interview, he reveals that he and many others, and he says everyone in the industry at some point in their career flub a review, softball a review, meaning that they may have hated a film, but because of politics, because of their career and trying to protect their career, they sacrifice their own integrity to write a glowing review or a positive review, or to ignore bad things over the others. Basically admitting to what we already know about the access media, that the access media, the critics, Again, the film critics themselves, who love to get the pre-screenings, who love to get all of the media access, who love to get, first dibs when it comes to interviews with the giant stars, that they themselves have now been shown, it has now been exposed by their own admission that they cook their reviews, they prop up their reviews, and to me that makes a lot of sense as to why it's currently certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, even though the average score is 68%. Which is a failing grade for those who have not been in school in a very long time. Again, as it says, own great info on the market. Well, I'm glad that you like that. That's actually something that I was just inundating myself with nothing but box office numbers, and I was looking at it, doing the math, and I was like, wait a minute, there's something off here, especially when I got to, again, I have the document pulled up right now. Yeah, and especially when I had the Captain Marvel $35,000 per theater versus the $50,000 per theater of Black Panther. The worst thing about it, though, is that the $50,000 per theater had less theaters. Again, it had less theaters. It just blows my mind. It really does. Blows my mind. Blows my mind. Let's see. Mr. Schiff says, if it makes $1 billion, what does that say about Marvel's future? It says several different things because, as I said, this film has the potential to reach $1 billion for sure. If it shows itself to even have one leg, I would say it would be enough to get it to cross that finish line because its opening was just that massive. But as I said before, it just doesn't seem. There's something that's just so off about these numbers, and then when I finally realized, it released in every major market on the same day, that makes so much more sense as to why it made so much money overseas. That also explains why it made so much money on its opening weekend, but that also, once again, means that, that's going to explain, in my thought, why it's going to have such a large drop-off from week 1 to week 2. The number of the drop-off is going to tell us whether or not it's going to have the legs to reach the $1 billion mark. And if it does indeed reach the $1 billion mark, what does that mean for Marvel's future? What that means is that Marvel obviously still knows how to market a movie, that Marvel obviously has a machine in place to get the theaters, to get the 3D and the IMAX and everything that goes with it, all of the countries to come together and release things on the same day. And what it tells to me is that the MCU is going to have a great endgame, potential $2 billion film once again, even more than the $2 billion mark, could potentially even be a movie that could finally dethrone Avatar. I don't know about that. I have a lot of confidence, though. I would say I'm 75% sure that Endgame is going to make another $2 billion. And I think that once Endgame's done, though, that Captain Marvel has more of an impact on that than on anything else. I think the Captain Marvel effect, and especially, again, even if it hits $1 billion, if it hits that $1 billion after having massive loss and massive, I wouldn't say backlash, but massive theater backlash, meaning the theaters, the per theater becomes even worse, drops even more so. That to me is when I'm going to look to it and say, okay, wait a minute, there's something going on here. So yes, it's still making money, and it's because you release it in all these theaters, and so it's racking up the money, and all it just needs to do is coast, and it'll crack the $1 billion mark. However, that is a big, big but, as many of them will say. So let's see. We got Daniel A. Thank you very much for the $1 super chat, Daniel A. I really do appreciate that, man. Let's see. John Henry, welcome to the channel. Almena Jam Band, welcome to the channel as well. Hexbox, thank you very much for the $10 super chat. Hexbox says, how do you think the media will react if the numbers for Captain Marvel show a decline in the second week, especially if it drops drastically, and will it affect Endgame and Captain Marvel's role? So yeah, everyone's been talking about the supposed 2 different cuts of Endgame. I've never bought into that, to be honest. I know that people say that there are images out there that show from the shareholders meeting that is something that's true. I don't buy into it unless I see something with my own eyes and am able to see clearly that something has not been doctored and it's being covered by a legitimate source. And by that, I don't mean the mainstream media. I just mean there's several media outlets out there that are still trustworthy, and it's not been picked up really by any of those. So I don't believe necessarily that it'll have any impact on her role in Endgame itself. Endgame is done. Endgame has been filmed. Keep this in mind, guys. Endgame comes out next month. I know they're still doing some final touch stuff, but the film is essentially done, and they're not going to randomly cut things and put things together that just don't work. And because they didn't know what kind of a movie this was going to be or how it was going to be received, they obviously would not have spent the extra money to film an extra scene that they don't necessarily need. I think the Russos are brilliant guys. I think the Russos know exactly what they're doing. They have not let me down yet. Every single movie they've made so far has been damn near perfect. Winter Soldier, still one of my all-time favorites. Civil War, strong, solid outing. And then, of course, Infinity War, which to me is the movie of 2018 and one of the most iconic movies of the last 10, 20 years. It's a movie that even my own people for the Wednesday Awards gave the most iconic film of the year award, meaning it's going to be the movie that's most likely to be remembered for years to come. Because, I mean, like, seriously, go up to any movie fan worth their salt, and simply go, and immediately they'll know, oh my gosh, I know, right? And you can start a conversation with them about the snap, So I think that it's not going to affect the Endgame numbers. As far as the decline in the media, I think that if you see massive drop-offs from week 1 to week 2, you'll see nothing but excuses. You will hear them say, oh, well, no, this is normal because it did open in more foreign markets than anywhere else, and so if there's no need to panic, it's already made. Look at how much money it's already made. It's already over $500 million, so therefore we must say that it's going to be great. Like, that's how they're going to spin it if it indeed is a massive drop-off. And they'll just do what the media do. Again, what do the media do? They love to shill. They love to make excuses. They love to cover films. Only certain films, though. I mentioned this in my video today that when it comes to Alita, which is another strong female character, but actually has a good character arc, good story, good world building, has all the right pieces there. Again, it is flawed, but it still has all the right pieces. And on the other side, you have Captain Marvel, which is definitely a mixed review film, even from the top critics themselves. And yet the media decide to play cover and support one movie, which is already bad in the first place because the media, the mainstream media, these so-called journalists are not supposed to take sides on this. If I go to Forbes.com, if I go to Scott Mendelson, and if he is the head box office guy, I don't want to have to read his opinions on how the so-called Alita challenge failed. I don't want to have to hear his opinion on all the trolls and the trolls campaign failed, when he himself obviously doesn't even know what a troll is. The fact that his very title alone fulfills the very definition of what a troll is. If he thought that he was not making that title to try and piss off people and cause a reaction, you do realize that that is what a troll is? It's just amazing to me. It really is. So, yeah, that's my thought on that. But Hexbox, thank you very much for that super chat. I really do appreciate it. Eric Rhodes says, if the film breaks 800 million, remember you promised us a show. Oh, wait a minute. What did I say? The speaking show? What show did I promise? I know that I said that. Eric, thank you for reminding me. I know that I promised that if it broke that number, that I would do something. Remind me what it was. Was it the singing show? Karaoke? I think I promised a karaoke night. I will stand by that promise because, yeah, thank you for reminding me. Valkyrie, if you can just confirm that it was a singing show, like a karaoke show, I am totally down for that because, hey, I am a man of my word. I'm never going to back down from the things that I offer. I will always try and speak nothing but the truth to you guys. And if I said this movie's not going to make this much money, and if it does, I'll do that, well then, gosh darn it, I'm going to do it. Tina says, what are we linking to? Nerdrotics channel. Hopefully you heard me. Popstar Gun says, the mouse goes woke, the SJWs go broke. Yeah, no, seriously. Because, yeah, they may have made money on this one, but that's because they were banking on the goodwill of a lot of MCU fans. No one was denying that the general MCU fans were going to go see this movie. Again, no one was denying it. But even the MCU fans really, in reality, and people can say, but the box office numbers say different. No, in reality, they did not really show up in mass droves, more so than all the other films combined, than any other. again, I've already pointed it out. Again, per theater, Captain Marvel made $35,000. And it was released in a large number of theaters overall. And I think that that's something that needs to be talked about. I think that's a point that we need to start bringing up, saying, yeah, you did okay, but in the top 9 movies, in the top 9 tickets per, or rather the top 9 money per theater, again, money per theater for your movie, Captain Marvel ranks 9th. So yeah, that's impressive because it's in the middle of the pack, but guess what that means? It means that as far as it's making money per theater, it's in the middle of the pack, and it's got controversy around it. And yeah, everyone saw it this weekend because everyone that was going to, and the generic MCU fans went to go see it, but will they go back? Will people see this multiple times? This has not come across as a movie that it's going to be seen multiple times by a lot of people. And as I said before, that foreign number, it's been artificially boosted up by the fact that they've gotten all of these markets to come out in the same time. A lot of factors going on here. Let's see. Wayne says, let's talk more about Alita. Make me feel better about getting a sequel. I covered this in my video today. There is some good news. For starters, it has broken $300 million in the foreign market. That's very good. It's still not quite enough. Right now, it's sitting at around $382 million worldwide. It needs to make $430 million in order to break even. The good news that I can report, though, is that it has indeed been confirmed that Alita is getting an extension in China. It will now be playing in China through April 21st. That's a good thing because it means China believes Alita is making enough money to be able to stay in theaters that long. What's important to know about China is that China is very, very specific with which films it releases in its theaters. When it comes to American audiences, when it comes to American films, when it comes to Western films coming into their theaters, they only ever usually give a 4-week window, saying, all right, here's your window. Keep in mind that you only get 25% of the box office. We get the rest. We get 75%. You get 25%. And if you don't do well, we have the obligation to pull your movie. For Solo Star Wars Story, it lasted, I want to say, 2 weeks, and then they pulled it early because it was doing so bad. Alita, which has now been out for, 3-4 weeks in China, has just got an extension, and if you're going all the way until April 21st, that says to me that they have a pretty fair amount of confidence that the film's going to make, at least enough money to keep justifying its existence at that level. And so the closer that we can get that, and I think that most prognosticators actually do believe by the end of its run, seeing that it made about $11 million this past weekend at the entire foreign market, it's going to reach most likely $400 million by the end of its run. And if that happens, the closer it can inch to $430 million is the less it needs to make up in the box office. But here's the big kicker. It's got a passionate fan base. I know that just because of the fact that most of you here, a lot of you here are probably passionate Alita fans, or at least like Alita, who are going to buy the Blu-rays, buy the DVDs, buy the books, buy the merchandise, seriously, give it money in that way. And I think that there's going to be such a strong level of support in a true grassroots effort to push this movie to a sequel that I think it's going to end up earning one that way. The other thing that gives me hope is that Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat, which cost more than Alita and also made less than Alita, now has a sequel. It took them a little bit longer, but it now has a sequel because there were obviously enough people after the movie came out, especially on DVD and Blu-ray, that went out and bought it in crazy amounts because it was actually a really great film. It was one of the best films of that year. I think Alita is going to have a very similar effect. The fact that it got that extension in China and the fact that I know the Blu-ray sales are going to be very high, maybe not record-breaking, but still solid enough to make it some money. I think that I think it'll be okay. I think that Alita will be fine, and I think that we have a very good chance of us getting a sequel. The only thing I could possibly think of it getting in the way is the fact that it is currently being produced by Fox, even though the rights are apparently owned by James Cameron, and Disney is obviously going to appropriate Fox very soon, any day now. They said that by March, April, that the Disney-Fox acquisition would be complete. And Disney very well could say, nope, we have no interest in funding this project. But if indeed James Cameron owns the product, he could easily bring it to a different company. So it really depends. Basically, if you're a fan of the franchise and if you want a sequel, keep at it. And I'm not just saying go out and watch it in theaters, nonstop, but it just means, hey, when it goes out on DVD, Blu-ray, buy it. If it ever becomes available to rent it. Bring family, bring friends, recommend it. Do that kind of stuff. Because it's that kind of ground root stuff, that's that kind of a passionate fan base that is able to push projects that maybe weren't seen as financially viable and getting them an opportunity to have a second chance. So, alrighty. So hopefully that alleviated some of your fears. I think the chance of a sequel are still very, very high, and that China extension is very, very good news. Let's see. Mr. Schiff says, will Birds of Prey flop if there's SJW stuff in the marketing? I don't know. I'm very uninterested in Birds of Prey. I'm not going to lie. And it just has everything to do with the fact that I don't really know much about it. And everything that I have heard about it seems to indicate that there's going to be some level of that kind of a mindset in the overall story. So if that's the case, I don't think it's going to do well. But then again, with this current day, age, and market, who knows? Let's see. Greta says, I can't wait to see Us. It looks good. It really does look good. I just don't like scary movies. They scare me. Alexander says, Lupita Nyong'o is Mas Kanata from Soy Wars. Yes, she is. I like Lupita Nyong'o. I think she's a very talented actress. Rhaegar says, as a former horror movie connoisseur, Us looks cheesy. Oh, Rhaegar Targaryen calling out everyone, throwing out them bombs, man. Woo, boy. I think it looks fine. As someone who is not a horror movie connoisseur, but just a general audience member, I can say that it looks terrifying for me. And I would say this more than anything else, it's the music. The music gets me every time. Every time I hear that, dun, 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 I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm about to die. Aiden Vickery says, hey guys, while we wait to sub to Odin's second channel and bookmark ODM reviews. Oh, dude, Aiden Vickery, thank you, man. So yes, I do indeed have a website. It's called OMB Reviews. So I'll go ahead and post a link to it. It's still a work in progress. It ain't pretty, but I think it's simplistic. I think the rating system is very straightforward. The fact that you can say, I'm interested, I'm not interested, and if you've seen the movie, to give it a rating and leave a comment. And unless you are harassing somebody, and unless you're doing something that actually means you shouldn't have your comments posted, it's a free speech zone. Okay, you can have whatever opinion that you want. Just don't attack people, obviously. And there was one person that I had to block. And the reason why is because this was his comment. I have no plans on seeing this movie, but I had to rate it 5 stars just to troll this guy. And I was like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. Okay, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna go after you on that one. But anyway, guys, the link that I just posted, that is the website. So again, that is to OMB Reviews. And then let's see. Also, guys, I'm adding movies every single day. So there is a option there when you go to request a movie. Just click on it, and it'll send an email to me and just say what movies you want out there. Right now, I'm limiting it to recent releases. So right now, I have movies in release, and then I have the release schedule all the way going up until December. I've got some to-be-determined ones that have not given a release date yet for 2019. I have one 2021 because someone recommended it, and it's Avatar 2, which, most of you should already know my thoughts on Avatar. And I also now have, I recently added a section called On DVD and Blu-ray, so something that's come out somewhat recently. I'm not adding in the classics yet, and the reason why is because I still am trying to figure out the best way to get the layout working just right. It might require me just to play around with some of the features and stuff. I am still new to all this, but yeah, so that's where I am with that currently. And then also, if you could be so kind, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. There is a secondary channel where I post all my previous live streams. It's where I did my massive Rotten Tomatoes expose live stream. For some reason, it did not upload the full 14 hours, which makes me very upset. However, it looks like it has indeed been lost. But I'm also going to do some other vlog type stuff on the channel. I'm also going to try and do some more maybe non-movie related stuff as well. So if you could go check out the channel and just drop a sub, I'm less than 50 away from getting to 1,000 there. So it would really would mean a lot if you could help out. So again, the YouTube, welcome to Asgard. If you could just drop a sub there, I would greatly appreciate it. You all rock. All right, what we got? Sean C. says, Scott Mendelson is a weirdo. He was championing Wonder Woman's box office performance, but now, 2 years later, he has taken several pot shots at Wonder Woman in his Captain Marvel article. Yes, Scott Mendelson. For some reason, I thought of Ben Mendelsohn. I was like, oh, no, not Ben Mendelsohn. Scott Mendelson, yes, Scotty Boy. Scotty Boy is what I like to call him, and Scott has become nothing more than a politicized SJW show. He puts politics and spin into every article, and all that he does is cover the box office. And he actually does it really well. If you actually just go to his numbers, and if you go to his methodology, it's mostly sound stuff. You know, as someone that follows the box office, I'm like, all right, dude, if you could just get your head out of your ass and just focus on the numbers, I would be sharing the hell out of your articles. I would be giving you so much praise. But when you have titles, these were 2 titles that he had. The first was that hashtag Alita challenge fails. And it's like, okay, why is that a commentary? You could just talk about the box office for Alita instead. And then the other one he said was, you know, Captain Marvel proves the trolls wrong. It's like, why are you writing an opinion piece when you're supposed to be giving me an objective look at the box office? How have objective box office numbers now become a subjective point of view? It doesn't make any damn sense to me. But yeah, dude, like, it's so funny to see all of these shills just go out of their way to try and back out on things they said before. Because guess what? When Wonder Woman came out, everyone loved it. The media ate it up. I honestly think that it didn't eat it up nearly as much as they would had, since the fact that you had Gal Gadot, who was not an SJW, someone who was not going to play the identity politics game. And also, and I do say this in all sincerity, I think that her being Israeli and being proud of that, I think honestly hurt her as well, because there are a lot of anti-Semitic people in Hollywood, in government as well, and I think that that is something that probably also led to some of the not so nice and not so kind things, especially nowadays, because guess what? You have a strong woman who was a former member of the Israeli army on one side, and then you have an upper class, elitist, white woman playing Captain Marvel. What do you think? Which one do you think the media is going to support, no matter what? 8-Bit Snake Boy says, Captive State is an unknown sci-fi movie directed by Rupert Wyatt. Rise of the Planet of the Apes. It has John Goodman and Ashton Sanders Moonlight in the cast. I do like me some John Goodman. This sounds interesting. Captive State. I may have seen a trailer for this because I remember seeing a trailer for John Goodman. I just cannot remember the actual name of the movie itself. All right, chat jumped on me again, as I assumed it would. So let me find a comfy spot in the chat. And also, I got some super chats to get to as well. So, what do we got here? We have a beautiful Twisted Mind. Thank you so much for the super chat. Really do appreciate it. Hi, Odin. I've seen Alita 6 times. Then I went and paid to see Alita a 7th time and snuck into Captain Marvel. Glad I gave my money to Alita. Captain Marvel, bad. Well, a beautiful Twisted Mind. Thank you for joining me in what I did, allegedly. What I allegedly did. And I think that was the best way to do it, because at the end of the day, you get to still see the movie. And when people say, why are you crapping all over it? You haven't even seen it. Oh, I have seen it. Oh, so you paid for it? What happened to that boycott? Well, I didn't pay for it. Oh my gosh, how dare? Oh my gosh, it's great. But kudos to you, good sir. Glad that Alita got your box office money. And again, guys, if it's in your area and you have not seen it yet, go see it. Don't let these guys, I know that they want to, and I know that they're loving it every time, but don't let these guys, the hardcore, don't let the true fans be the ones that, you know, outdo you by going every single time they can. Join them in this effort. Seriously, it's a good movie. Walter Vega, welcome to the channel. All right, Grandmaster Yoda. Hello, good sir. He says, Odin, I think Alita's flaws are small things we don't give a damn about. It's my favorite at the moment, and I found my all-time favorite moment of any movie in Alita. God, I love this movie. Glad to see it 5 times. I would say, as far as favorite moments are concerned, It has, in my opinion, the best use of the F-bomb that I can ever remember. And as someone who tries to avoid cursing on my channel, as someone that tries to avoid cursing just in life in general, the fact that after she made those after she has that moment, and it's just like, you're just, mercy, and I'm just like, psh, and it's like, again, I don't want to do the whole phrase or anything like that, but just know it's phenomenal. And yes, one of my all-time favorite moments in any film from this point on. I've seen it twice myself. I saw it both times. First time I saw it in Dolby 3D, and it was beautiful. Second time, IMAX 3D, not nearly as beautiful, just because the IMAX glasses make my eyes hurt, because they're just not made right. There's just something wrong about them. And I loved it both times. Brought my wife the second time, and now she's an Alita fan, so I would call that a win in my book. For sure. All right, let's see. Halo says, I analyzed Captain Marvel's story, structure, pacing, and character development. It was a mediocre movie, and I think that's really what it comes down to. I can respect any person's subjective opinion about any movie. Even Anna, that Star Wars girl, and I'm going to call her out right now. Even though Anna, for some reason, likes Avatar and defends it, even though there are ponytail sex, and that same ponytail, that same dirty sexual ponytail, is also used to somehow connect to and ride animals. Let's just not talk about that. Even though she defends movies where fish sex is a major part of it in The Shape of Water, and she tries to defend it. Even with all of those things, being the case, I will say that I respect her because of the fact that she recognizes how amazing Alita truly is, how amazing her character arc is, how amazing everything about the character is as well. And the biggest thing too, and the most important thing I would say, is also, it's about understanding that we can indeed agree that there is a subjective opinion. So what I just laid out from Anna, she can subjectively love the movies. I know that she's going to totally disagree with me here. And, oh man, she'll go after me too. So she can subjectively like the movie all she wants. It does not change the objective ridiculousness of the stories and the plots. And that goes for any film. You can subjectively like anything. Again, the best example I get, because some people say, like, oh, how can you really say there's an objective opinion on film? All right, I'll give you the best example. There's a movie called The Room. It is one of my all-time favorite films. It is also the worst film ever made. This has been confirmed by countless numbers of people. However, subjectively, I love it. I think it's hilarious. I think it's a comedic masterpiece, even though the guy was making it, trying to make it as a drama. He did not try to make it funny, which is why I think it's even more brilliant. So, subjective thought, love the movie because it's hilarious. Objectively, oh my god, there are so many flaws. And this is the biggest problem that we have going on in film criticism, is that so many people, so many of these so-called film critics who give these 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, which really comes down to a 6.81. Gosh, it's like that actually just keeps dropping. So the current score on Rotten Tomatoes is a 68% from all critics and a 63% from the so-called top critics. And what that means to me, how that translates, is that it's a mediocre film. It's a mediocre film. That's all that there is to it. It's mediocre at best. It's mediocre at best, but the problem is that many of these people are choosing to artificially support this film by giving it a 50%, like a 2 out of 4, a 2.5 out of 5, and then saying, but I'm going to call it fresh. And that's why you see the 80% certified fresh rating, when the actual rating itself is 68. That's why Metacritic at this point is actually probably the most accurate one we have, because at least it gives you an algorithm. It tells you exactly how they come up with their scores. And as I just said with those scores, this one's at 64. So this one's at a 64 out of 100, 64%. Guess what that does? That matches up damn near perfectly to the audience score going on Rotten Tomatoes as well. So it's fascinating to me to hear people say, oh my gosh, there is this troll campaign, but the scores are matching up. the scores are what's matching up here. And also, last time I checked, the number also keeps rising too. So even though it says 69%, the numbers that I always look to are going to be the actual star rating itself. And so right now, the star rating is at a 3.3 out of 5 for the audience score, which means it's at a 66%. So right now, we see, at least when it comes to the Rotten Tomatoes numbers, we see that, yes, the other number is set currently at 59. But what they've been doing, because we've seen them do this systematically, we know that Rotten Tomatoes has definitely been, vetting comments. How much and what it's doing, we don't know. But the fact that we indeed see that 65% versus the 59% that's showing means that that number is very soon going to flip up to it being a fresh movie from the audience rating. It's going to be a full cup of popcorn instead of it being flipped over. All right, I'm sure the chat's going to jump on me, but we'll do what we can. Tina says, I have posted links for Nerdogratic's channel, also your review movie channel, and your second channel. We're on it. Thank you very much, Tina. Guys, let's give it up to Tina and Steph, the Valkyrie. They are doing amazing work. They are the ones trying to keep me in line because God knows I can go off on tangents and forget things, and they are the ones that try and keep me honest. Halo says, there was a lot of MCU movies that were mediocre, like Iron Man 2, but they have high Rotten Tomatoes scores. No, I think you're right. And I think that definitely dives into another point, which is the DC fans have long time had an issue with the MCU fans. Not because of necessarily the fandoms, but because of the way that they're covered. And a lot of DCU fans, I feel, believe that their movies are being biased against or having a bias against them from critics. And though I don't buy that to an extent because I myself have issues with a lot of the DC films, and it's not just because it's DC, it's just because of the way the movies are made. I definitely think that there are certain movies in the MCU that are given passes because they're Marvel made. That I do agree with. I don't think they are trying to tank DC films, but I do think that they're padding up MCU films, if that makes any sense. So I think that there's if you could call it a conspiracy, I think it's mostly a bias towards Marvel and a standard view towards the DC. Meaning that if the critics were not being, if the access media were not being influenced by outside resources, I think that the Marvel films and DC films would get around the same score. At least when it comes to the mediocre films like, as you said, Iron Man 2. I would put Age of Ultron in there as well. Captain Marvel, obviously, I would put in there as well. And, what else? There's at least one or two other films that fall into those categories. Some people would say Iron Man 3. I liked it as a Shane Black movie. But that's, again, a preferential thing. But I would say Iron Man 3 was divisive. Therefore, you could say it was a mediocre film. And yet, as you said, got vast praises. And I think there's definitely a level of chivalry there to support that, for sure. G-Monkey says, unfortunately, 3 of my coworkers saw Captain Marvel, and they liked it. One even said his girlfriend asked to see it again when it was over. I think they're all in their 20s. I fear for the future. Yes, indeed. And as we said, there are going to be people that are going to subjectively like it. There are some people who just like to turn their brains off and see things happen on screen. And it sounds like, not to insult the girlfriend, but that's what it sounds like she was trying to say, was like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. Let's see it again. And anyone with I would say half a brain who were able to say, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Wait a minute. How is it that but wait a minute, no. Like anyone with common sense, anyone that's just like a very even-keeled person would just be like, no, what is this nonsense? This doesn't make any damn sense. Pop-Tart Gun says, enough is enough. I've had it with these mother effing shills on this mother effing score. I hear you, dude. Super Anime Gamer, what's up, dude? He says Cameron could take it elsewhere, but he's been working with Fox for so long. If Disney is smart, they will leave him alone and trust him to make money because we all know he can do it. Yes, I think he can. I think that his next move, though, is going to try a different marketing campaign in the U.S. and do exactly what he did overseas, because $300 million over the seas is a very good number. So yes, I totally agree with you there. Wish Upon a Vlog. What's going on, Wish Upon a Vlog? Guys, go sub over to my Irish sister, Wish Upon a Vlog. She says, I'm uninterested in Birds of Prey 2. Yeah, seriously, I just, to me, it has all of the makings of a really cringe-worthy film. And I say that mostly based on the fact that they've brought in the same screenwriter who did Bumblebee. And I know I have a lot of people that disagree with me about Bumblebee. I did not like it. But the reason I didn't like it was not because of the CGI. CGI was awesome. It was damn near perfect. The acting, solid. The writing sucked. The story was awful. And when I looked into the story further, I realized, oh, this is a writer that's only written a few things, one of which is a movie called Unforgettable, which last time I checked has easily been forgotten from the film lexicon. So I don't really have a lot of high hopes for that. But go check out Wished Upon a Vlog. She is my Irish sister, and she is awesome. Vlad Wright says, Odin has no fear. I try my very best. Tech Guy says, I need to make dinner, but I cannot miss Odin's info. Well, you can always go back in time and rewatch it. I think the way that I have it set up is that you can do that. And if not, it'll be live on that secondary channel. Again, if you want to ever watch these. Also, I've noticed that, World Class BSers and Nerdrotic release some of their live streams as podcasts. And I'm actually kind of tempted to try that out. So please let me know in the comments if you think, one, it would be a good idea, or two, oh, how can I do this? Valkyrie, here's what's going to happen, because I'm probably not going to be live in the chat. What I want the people in the chat to do, if you want me to try and upload the video and have the audio play as a podcast, please put a 1 in the chat. And that's if you want to listen to it as well. Like if you plan on, eventually maybe getting it on your podcast app, if you like podcast app like that. And then 2, if you want to, this is going to be so convoluted, but put a 2 if you want me or think I should release this as a podcast. If you think it would work as a podcast, even though maybe you, since you're watching it now, probably won't listen to it later. Let me know. 1s and 2s, Valkyrie, keep a count and let me know. Let me know, 1, if there are a lot of people that are answering 1s and 2s, and if there are a lot of 1s, because if there's a lot of people that would like to be able to listen to these as podcasts, especially those who might not be able to make it every Monday, Tuesday, or Saturday, I would very much like to know that. Because I've been listening to, in the car, I've been listening to a lot of Nerdrotic's live streams as the podcast form, and I was listening to World Class BSers as well. And since mine tend to be normally around an hour and 30, max 2 hours, I think that it's a long enough stream to be able to work also as a podcast. Sticky V says, what are your thoughts on how and if Gamora gets resurrected? Well, I think that they kind of hinted at it when she herself is shown as a child, and it seems to be within that stone, the Soul Stone. So I think that what we are gathering from that is that the soul of Gamora is within the Soul Stone itself, and that's the reason why he was able to receive it and therefore utilize it. And therefore, I think that in the end, there's going to be an opportunity for him to, and this is what I think. Some people say time travel is going to come into play. It very well could. I personally, my garbage theory for this movie, for Endgame, is that the frickin' Flurkin from Captain Marvel is going to be the one that swallows Thanos whole and brings it into his little pocket dimension that's in his mouth. Because, yeah, that's a thing. I think that is also something that could happen. But more likely than not, what I suspect will happen is that Thanos will somehow be convinced that he's made a terrible mistake. And I think what you're going to end up seeing, and this is actually, if you're going to have a female character take down Thanos, it has to be Nebula. Logically speaking, Nebula makes the most sense with their history that they have together. But also, too, I think that it's not just he's being destroyed, but I think it's instead Thanos having an actual change of heart. Thanos has obviously shown himself to be, someone who likes to delve into logic. And I think what's going to happen is that he's going to convince, or Nebula is going to convince Thanos somehow, some way, to release Gamora from the Soul Stone. And because of that, maybe with the Soul Stone no longer being active or whatever it is that happens, that basically does away with anything that does away with anything that the Gauntlet itself has done. But also, too, potentially you could have not just Gamora in the Soul Stone. Theoretically speaking, all of the population of the universe could also be currently within the Soul Stone. So you could see something like that happen. I actually would not hate that. I think that would actually be okay, because I think it would definitely be a good story of like a father-daughter, but obviously the father is a crazy maniacal person. But the fact that she might be able to, even though she's been mostly turned into a robot, show the heart that she has as well. I don't know. Out of all the endings that I've been told and have been rumored, that's the one that I hate the least. Pikachu PS3 says, what if Alita sequels become like Thor Ragnarok? I'm down. I like Thor Ragnarok. I loved Thor Ragnarok. Oh my god, if Taika Waititi did an Alita film, I would be there day one, because I love both of those things. Kurt Wiener says, did you see Hereditary? I did, begrudgingly, and I actually hated it. I thought it was so pretentious. To me, it was one of those higher, upper level, snooty horror films that doesn't actually do anything except try and prove itself to be so high-end in its thinking and so smart and everything. I don't like horror films in general, and those types of horror films, in my own opinion, are some of the worst, if I had to say so. Pop-Tart Gun says, Marcellus Wallace equals Rotten Tomatoes, Jules Winfield equals Captain Marvel, Mr. Wolf equals Disney. All right, I don't understand those references. Brad Noble says, Odin is not putting 5 on it. Not putting 5 what? Tina says, please give a shout out to my sister Valkyrie. She's had a long day. The week is going to be longer because it's spring break. I'm feeling down for her. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Steph. Huge shout out to Steph. Again, both Steph and Tina, my Valkyrie, are awesome, but a huge shout out especially to Steph as she goes through a difficult week, it sounds like. So hope everything is going well. Halo says, I think the MCU will never have a negative word of mouth by the media because they made mistakes and they get away with it. I think that's a fair point. However, we could easily see that change if the box office scores for this change, and if the future of the MCU is brought in the same direction as Captain Marvel, we could see something similar. Let's see. Evo says, any plans to add TV shows to the site? No. TV shows would be that would be the last thing that I would add. And that would only be after I finally had a finalized template. Everything has been finalized. Only then would I eventually add TV shows. My main goal is to let it be focused on movies, and then build a fan base, build a trust, and then eventually release a legitimate website that's not just a WordPress that I was able to throw together and is an awesome one. I want it to be, again, I would love it. My dream and my goal is to have it be at the point where people could see it as a viable alternative to Rotten Tomatoes. That is my end goal. It obviously is going to take a hell of a lot of work. It's going to take a hell of a lot of skill, but I have the willpower, I have the desire, and we'll see what happens. Sean C. says, Aquaman made $13 million in China on its first Monday. Captain Marvel only $6 million. It looks like Captain Marvel is crashing in China. Dude, Sean C., thank you for that number, man. Yeah, I didn't see that myself. I do know that Alita made more than Captain Marvel did in its Monday after. So I think you're right. I think if you look at the trends in China, they are trending downward. And I'm glad that you said that. So you said, let's see, Aquaman made $13 million in its first day. So therefore, Captain Marvel made about half. Captain Marvel made about half. All right, let's do some quick number crunching live on air, because why the hell not? I know that's why y'all come here. I know that y'all come here to see and hear me talk about box office numbers nonstop. All right, so in China, it made in... it made a crap ton of money. I forgot it did that well in China. So Aquaman made a whopping $298 million in it, and let's see. It opened to $93 million, dropped 42%, 56%, 51%, and was given an extension, and still made money all the way through. Unfortunately, this website does not give me the daily totals, but based on what you've just said, if we can expect it to make about half, and it made roughly the same amount of money. Ooh, wait a minute. Hold on. I can do a work on this. Because in China, Captain Marvel made around $90 million, right? And so if we see that kind of a drop-off, and it dropped 42% for Aquaman, that means we're more likely than not to get around 60% of a drop in China, which means that if that continues, it won't get an extension. And if that happens, it means the max it could make would be $261 million, and I don't think it's going to make that much, to be honest. So, okay, wow. Yeah, that's actually interesting. I think that is a huge sign that it's not going to do well in China. Tech Guy says, so Odin, can we put a bad review of Captain Marvel with no repercussions? Yes, Tech Guy, you can put a bad review. I would just ask that you don't say anything, obviously, that would, make my mother blush. No, I'm kidding. Just obviously don't harass people. That's my biggest thing. Don't target people. Don't go after people. But yes, give me an honest review. You can say, this movie sucks. If you need to put a few curse words in there, I'm okay with that. Just don't be constructive with it. I don't mean be constructive in your criticism. I just mean use better words. There are better words that you can use instead of cursing, like troglodyte or asshat. Use asshat. Every time that you want to say F or biatch, say asshat. It'll make you feel better. Gannison says, it's a shame we didn't get a Dredd sequel. Oh, I agree, man. Dredd was awesome. Dredd was absolutely fantastic. Anthony Aguirre, what's going on? Alan Sparks says he didn't get notified. That is no surprise. It's YouTube after all. No surprise at all. Someone mentioned John Campea. Why are you mentioning that name on this channel? Let's see. Ed Allen Compassilly says, has Odin addressed the Captain Marvel audience demographics yet? Significantly more men watched it, but Disney claimed the demographics were almost equal. Yes, last time I checked, it was 60% men, which is interesting, seeing that this was supposed to appeal to women, which means that this film was able to show up the typical demographic audience and also at the same time shut out certain people as well. And I think the second weekend drop is going to reflect that drop. Christopher Nail says, hey, Odin, let's wall up LA and toss NPCs in it. Yes, let's create a max security prison island on LA, cut it off from the land, let it float into the sea, and then just throw all the NPCs over there. Halo says, Wonder Woman was 100 times better than Captain Marvel. I would agree with you there, for sure. Pikachu says, I heard they'll make Alita Battle Angel like Ant-Man in Thor 3. Your thoughts? Thor 3 was great. Thor Ragnarok was awesome. I love Thor Ragnarok, and Ant-Man is also fun too. I would have no problem with it if it means it was as good as those movies. It's hard to say when you say, oh, they're going to make it like it. If you mean that they're going to make it lighthearted and fun, I have no problem with that. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of fun. Maybe that might be a way in which to appeal to, as long as they don't try and to appease to a wider audience, and in that appeasal, they lose the heart of the story. That is going to be the key. If they're able to find a balance of trying to bring new people in by maybe expanding the overall appeal of the film to more than just the manga fans, but also at the same time not lose what it had in the first film, I think that could definitely be something to look into. Rhaegar says, IGN 23 minutes ago, Captain Marvel's box office success defies trolls. Shill's gonna shill. Seriously, dude, you're gonna hear that non-stop. These media sites are going to run with this story all week because they know it's gonna get clicks. They know that there are people who are either going to be trolls or pretending to be trolls that are going to go after the comments, and then guess what? They can make another article about how they were attacked and how they were, all these types of things. I'm most interested to see what they think is going to happen second weekend, because as I said in the beginning of this podcast, I believe firmly that because this movie, Captain Marvel, had been front-loaded in more foreign countries at the same time, on the same day as a release, than any other MCU film up to this point, that is the reason why its opening weekend numbers were so high. And because of that, and because of the trends, seeing China, for example, have record drops in its Sunday score and Monday score on top, for example, and also the fact that in my breakdown of how much it made per theater, Captain Marvel comes in at number 9 as far as how much money it made per theater at $35,000 per theater, with Black Panther, which it was being compared to, at $50,000 per theater, and on top of that, Black Panther was at less theaters. That to me says a great deal about how there are indeed people who are not showing up for the film. The fact that there are 3 other movies, Age of Ultron, Iron Man 3, and Civil War, all of which had more money per theater at less theaters. Again, at less theaters. I think that shows to me there is indeed a domestic problem that it's going to have to overcome next weekend. And also, obviously, because of the front-ended foreign market, that we're going to see a massive drop-off in China and also in other foreign countries as well. So, yeah, definitely think that it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they spin it, because they're going to spin it. They've been protecting this movie since day one, and they are going to spin it until they're blue in the face. I'll wait until we get the actual percentage drops. I'll wait until we get a little bit more information so I can make an actual projection. And if it's as big as I think it's going to be as far as the drop, especially in China, we could be looking at a film that's going to peter out and not have legs, and it could be historic. Speaking of history, could happen. Could very well happen. Let's see. Aiden Vickery says, hi, if Alita gets close, wouldn't a sequel make sense to Disney, as Motorball is a park ride in waiting? Yeah, you know what? You have a point there. I would say it's really up to Disney. I think that Disney is going to have to work with James Cameron. James Cameron is not the easiest man to work with, so who knows? However, I can say that if there is indeed a strong fan basis, which I know there to be, just on the people that I've talked to on a daily basis, I think that fan bases are the ones that oftentimes are able to get things done that in other situations would not happen. And I think that the fan base for Alita is strong enough to will the movie itself to becoming and getting a sequel. Christopher Mills says, Odin, let's build a wall around LA and throw NPCs in it. All right, got that one already. All right, so let me go back up in the chat. Did I miss the 1s and 2s? Oh, here they are. Here they are. All right, so I got some 2s, some 1s, some 1s, 420, some 2s. I got some over 9,000. Pikachu fan says, how would you feel if they decide to make Alita sequels as Ant-Man and Thor 3? All right, answer that question. Thanos cannot lose. I really hope not, Tina. Seriously, Thanos is one of the best villains they have. It would be better for Thanos to willingly give up his quest than if he dies. I think that's going to be stupid. If there's time travel and Thanos dies, that is, I think, going to be the thing that leads a lot of people to leaving the MCU. But yeah, Nebula for sure. Absolutely Nebula. Aaron says, what if Thanos doesn't need a takedown? What if it's not the villain in Endgame? Hey, I think you know what? I think that I honestly believe the one that makes the most sense to me, the one that I would most like to see in Endgame, would be Thanos not just being defeated or being killed, but having a change of heart. Maybe a more powerful villain. Maybe they made... No, this is wishful thinking. This is a pipe dream right here. This would just be too good to be true. Maybe they're like, okay, we're going to make Captain Marvel so unlikable that everyone's going to freak out. And then what we're going to do is, in Endgame, we're going to make her the villain because she's so OP and she's going to try and destroy everything. And then Thanos has to come in and Thanos has to snap her out of existence. Boom! Then Thanos says, I have done my job, takes off the gauntlet, does some random thing where the stones either get destroyed or get dispersed throughout the universe, and then they have to collect them all together to raise the eternal dragon, who is now Brie Larson's Captain Marvel, to grant them a wish. That would be the perfect ending to that character. Let's just go full. If she's already going to go full Super Saiyan in this movie, we might as well just fully embrace the DBZ line and have her be snapped out of existence. But in reality, what she's been done is snapped into all of the stones piece by piece, and she can only ever come together again when all the stones are brought together. And then at that point, she turns into the eternal dragon and grants a wish. That's what I think. That's what I think should happen. Let's see. The Chinaman says, do you think DC is taking it slow right now? They're going with 2 movies a year. I think it's a good strategy. They need to focus and give good movies such as The Dark Knight and Watchmen. Well, The Dark Knight I don't really count because The Dark Knight was a Nolan movie, so I don't count that as DCEU necessarily. It is a DC property, but Nolan had full control of that project. Watchmen for me did not age well. So I think what they need to do is they need to make films like Wonder Woman and Aquaman. Those should be the 2 standard bearers because, in my honest opinion, the others are just not very good. Aquaman, Wonder Woman, let those 2 be the new heads of the Justice League and try and build characters like them. And I think that's where you'll find DC having success. But having them take it slow and get it right is so important, especially if Marvel is about to drop the ball here and go in the direction that it's going to end up bleeding fans. Then, yeah, it would be a good time, a good opportunity for DC to try and come in and sweep all those away. Super says, no, you're not into comics, but just for laughs, Larson's in a 7-movie deal. Captain Marvel and Endgame are only 2. What do you think the other 5 would be? Well, as long as it's her being the eternal dragon, then I think I will be fine. Sticky V says, thanks for answering my question. Sounds like a cool theory. Well, thank you, man. I really do appreciate that. And thank you for the question. Kurt Wiener says, I agree it's pretentious, but I found it quite scary anyway. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I was freaked out. I was definitely freaked out by the movie. But I don't like getting scared. Unless there's a purpose. For example, The Babadook is a great movie because it's a psychological thriller and it's very well done. So I was scared, but I also really liked what was going on. Hereditary, the whole time I was like, all right, this is creepy, but oh my God, this is just annoying. Oh my God, the clicking. Can't do it. Can't do it. Super says, also calling it now, Captain Marvel is getting nominated for an Oscar. You know what? I honestly think Captain Marvel will probably get nominated for visual effects. And you want to know why? I don't know if this is true or not. Hold on. Let me just confirm this fact. Because this actually very well could be not only the reason why it gets nomination, but also a win. And I'm not saying that it deserves this, by the way. I'm just speculating here. So Captain Marvel visual effects. Who is the head? Who is the head of visual effects? Because I heard a rumor about this, but I wanna make sure. I want to make absolutely sure. All right, I got producers, supervising arts, legacy effects. All right, that's makeup, production management, art management, sound department, special effects, visual effects. All right, I got digital composer, character lead. Is this the one? I can't tell. All right, maybe it's wrong. Someone had said that apparently there was some diversity hire for visual effects. Doesn't look like I can really confirm that at this point. So I'll just go ahead and say that that must just be a rumor at this point. But that would be one that I could see. If that was the case, that would be the reason why I could see it getting nominated in that way. Solsaz says, did you hear about the lady getting attacked by a jaguar after jumping the fence to take a selfie with it, then returns to apologize to the zoo people? I shouldn't be laughing because this person got attacked, but still. Why would you jump a fence to take a selfie with a wild animal? Hold on, guys. I gotta go jump this fence because I want to take my selfie with the anaconda. I'm sure I'll be fine. God. But anyway, Jason Bucks, welcome to the channel. Gary Rodriguez, welcome to the channel. Aaron Anderson, welcome to the channel. And Johnny, thank you very much for the $5 super chat, says, exhibitor relations is a great Twitter account for box office tracking. Really? Let me check that out. Exhibitor Relations. Because if I don't put it in now, I'm going to regret it later. And oh Lord, I bet you can take what I just said completely out of context. And I expect you all to do it. Oh boy. Let's see. Exhibitor Relations. Exhibitor Relations. People. Oh, relations. Exhibitor Relations. I don't know. They just tweeted the no. I'm not gonna follow them, and this is the reason why. The first article that they've posted has the fake news from Variety saying Captain Marvel box office ends the box office myths about female superheroes. There have never been any box office myths about female superheroes. We already had, just over the past few years, Gal Gadot show that a female-led superhero movie can make money. So, no. Thank you for the super chat, but it looks like to me they are part of the agenda. Rhaegar says, Odin didn't get the reference you made in the to the Us music. Oh, probably not. Gannison, The Exorcist is scary. Oh my god, The Exorcist is so scary. Catslave 56, that's an interesting name. I don't know how they will pull off Endgame because Marvel introduced the wrong Captain Marvel. It was Marvel, the male who fought Thanos, and they forgot to introduce Adam Warlock. I agree with you, not to mention the fact that they ruined the Skrulls. I have been finding out more and more about the Secret Invasion, which was a story arc in the comics where the Skrulls infiltrate the world, the Earth. And it's the point where you don't know who is a human or who is a Skrull. And apparently there's also these things called Super Skrulls that are able to pretend to be Avengers too. So the Skrulls could be a president, could be a dictator, could be anything. Now that story arc is gone because we had to turn them into refugees to make a commentary on immigration. Because that was a good idea, right? Yivo says, have you not seen Pulp Fiction? That was the other guy's comment, I have seen it. It's also been a very long time. And when I don't have a comment that's in context, usually I'm not going to understand it. The China Man says, DC is doing a Watchmen TV show with HBO. I think it could be a very high quality TV show. Yeah, I think that as long as Zack Snyder's not attached to it, I think it could build. Super says, it's 9 Eastern Standard Time at the time typing this, and right now I'm at 9:20. Someone said math. DZ says, it's thanks to you that I learned a lot about the box office. DZ3, awesome, man. Glad that you like it. Gayla says, SC Reviews Captain Marvel audience score is a lie. Video for how Rotten Tomatoes is fudging the numbers. Dude, I've been following that. I did an entire live stream where I was showing how they were updating the score and how it was at very, 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 very awkward and obviously cooked proportions from positive to negative scores. The China Man says, what you see DC Marvel movies in 10 years, imagine Injustice trilogy or Flashpoint movie. I honestly think we're going to see them die down. I think that there is going to be a point where they're going to either have to change completely or they're going to move formats. I could see a lot of movies in general moving to Netflix style releases. I could see the end of movie theaters as we know them, as sad as that would make me. So basically the theaters need to keep on innovating, but eventually there's going to be a point where innovation is going to stop or at least reach a pinnacle point. And then at that point, it's like, okay, do I go spend now the craziest amount of money that I possibly can to go see a movie at a theater and have to deal with people and pay more money for popcorn and everything? Or do I stay at home and spend very little per month and have access to an unlimited amount? I mean, I think there's a lot of factors that are going to go in as far as the next 10 years. It's going to be very interesting. I think theaters are still going to be around in 10 years, but I think it is still interesting nonetheless. Tina says, we have 4 1s, 18 2s, and 1 of each 3, 420, 29,000, and 666. All right, cool. So that tells me that people think that I should at least make it available as a podcast. Who knows? Maybe more people will fall into it as well. But for the 4 1s, I will go ahead and try and do that for you as soon as the video processes. I'll see what I can do and how I can get the audio uploaded, because that could be fun. I already do a podcast for my patrons, so it'd be really cool to be able to take a show that I do for the channel and not only have it available on my secondary channel, but also on the also available as a podcast as well. Podcasts are fun. I like listening to podcasts. They are a fun time for me to listen to, and I think that it's just overall it's a good time. You know, it's a good time. Speaking of which, let's see, where is the Welcome to Asgard channel? Have y'all helped me reach the peak? Have y'all helped me reach the mountain? Let's see. Current count. The current count is 965. Oh man, we are 45 subs away from 1K on the Welcome to Asgard channel. So, please think about it. Think about it. Think about subscribing to the channel. I really would greatly appreciate it a great deal. Let me go ahead and just copy and paste the link into the chat. So it is indeed Welcome to Asgard. Boom, we are 45 subs away. Do what you can. If you've already subbed, thank you. I appreciate it. For those who haven't, pick up your game, man. I'm kidding. You're awesome. You don't have to sub to the channel if you don't want to. We're just so close. I figured why not. Patrick Ollinger says, do you think there will be a Thor 4? I hope so. And I hope Taika Waititi does it because he revived Thor, saved Thor, I would say. And I would be very excited for it. Slicer Neon says, Brie and Rosie had swapped character roles. Would either be watchable anymore? If Brie and Rosie, Brie Larson and Rosie. I don't know who you mean by Rosie. I'm not sure. Let's see. The China Man says, what comic book movie you think is the best ever made? My current top favorites would be Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy. I personally also love... I see a few of you unsubbing. I see some of you subbing and then unsubbing. And Guardians of the Galaxy I really like. I also really enjoy... I actually really like The Incredible Hulk. It's, to me, a very underrated MCU film. It's not perfect, but it's an underrated one. I love the first Thor film just because, obviously, I'm Odin and I have to. But it is also, it's a fun time. And I'm trying to think of anything else. Infinity War, obviously. Civil War, Infinity War, all those are good. Anything the Russos have done have been pretty good. Christian Joe says, hi, Odin. I feel bad saying that I really enjoyed Captain Marvel. Saw it last night, and it wasn't bad like The Last Jedi in terms of agenda. I had more problems with pacing, lighting, and stunts. Brie was great. Well, Christian Joe, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And again, I think that you are definitely entitled to your subjective opinion. I just obviously see, as you pointed out, you understand that there are indeed objective flaws. I would say there's a lot more objective flaws that maybe you realize, but I think that you have every right to have that opinion in that subjectivity. James Cox says, I am former noveler and Xboxer. Let's discuss your blog. I can do it, team. Well, thank you very much for letting me know that. I am at the point where I'm trying to be careful with everything just because right now I'm keeping everything in-house until I know what to do, and then I might try and reach out and hire some people or do something like that. All right, well, we've been going now for an hour and 48 minutes, so let us go ahead and get to the live chat and start to wrap things up. Soulside says, are you going to check out What We Do in the Shadows TV series when it comes out? I did not know that was a thing, but I will, for sure. Rosa Salazar. If Rosa Salazar and Brie changed places, oh, no. I don't know if either actress would be right for either role. That would be my problem. I don't think either would really fit with those roles. Slicer says, I meant if the actresses for Alita and Captain Marvel took the opposite roles, would the films be ruined? Yeah. Yes, I think so. As much as I love Rosa Salazar in the role of Alita, I don't know if she could do it. And also, here's the thing, Slicer. It's even more than just Brie. It's the directors. I blame the directors more for Brie's performance than Brie herself. I think that she got screwed over by having some really garbage tier directors. And people can defend them and say, oh, but they've done great work in the past. They've made a film called Half Nelson, which apparently was pretty good. My biggest problem is that I could tell that she was trying to do certain things, but was obviously being held back for a reason, because they were trying to have that entire commentary about how, it's the patriarchy that's holding her back. And it just didn't work. And I blame the directors more than anything else. G-Mungus says, unfortunately, there will be a Thor 4, but only so they can do a female Thor storyline. I hope that does not happen. Chris Hemsworth, I don't think he's going away. He's a young guy. He's making bank. There's no reason for him to leave the MCU. Interdrap Production says, The Incredible Hulk, my lord. That's one film I hope Disney goes back and turns into a special edition so that Ed Norton's Hulk matches Mark Ruffalo. I don't know. I like it as it is. I would like to see it kind of get spruced up a little bit. But overall, it's a good one. Overall, I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. Is it perfect? No, but it's a fun time. It is still a fun time nonetheless. All right. Can the MCU leave? I don't know if the MCU can leave. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me on tonight's episode of Welcome to Asgard. It's been a ton of fun, so let me go ahead and just shout out my patrons before we call things a wrap. So a huge shout out to my man Dion, A Great Jedi, Adam Shawhan, Albertus, Delete System 32, Edward Coleman, Enrique Evangelista, Entertainment Hacker, Frank the Tank and the Shawhan Wiener Dog Clan, Harold Francis, the Hunka Chunky Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, Intertrap Productions, Jason Clark, Jeffrey Toon, Jonathan, Laura Story, Matthew Kadish, Mr. Peabody, and his evil twin, Outpost Dyer, Perpetual Punster, Projar Sarif, Proper Jeremy, Shang Long, Sir Lance Elato, Teodora, the DJD Show, those two ball guys, Tina B, and Wolfgang Lounge. You're all amazing, beautiful people. CF Production says, who's your favorite Hulk, Edward Norton or, Mark Ruffalo? So, if you mean actor that plays Bruce Banner, Mark Ruffalo, I think, plays Bruce Banner pretty well. Overall, between the two, I do like Edward Norton's Hulk, actually. I don't know why. Michael Fisher, be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes! I got that reference. Aiden Vickery, keep up the good work. You keep up the good work, Aiden. Great talking to you on Twitter all the time, man. 8-Bit Snake Boy says, awesome as usual. Thanks, all father. Thanks to you, 8-Bit Snake Boy, for stopping by. Dion says, and you can donate through Odin by PayPal. Dion, that is correct as well. I think the link to the PayPal is down below. So, again, whatever way that if you want to donate, you can do. But there is indeed a super chat that I need to get to. Don't worry, I did not forget you. I saw it. Carlos Crespin, thank you for the super chat. He says, why is sci-fi so niche in the U.S. outside of Star Wars and MCU? Imagine how much better Alita would have done in the box office. I don't think it's sci-fi nonetheless. I think it's a specific type of sci-fi. I really do look to the fact that it is based off of a manga. And if we know anything about anime and manga, those do have niche audiences. Those indeed do have niche audiences. And so I think the problem was not that it was sci-fi, but that it was because it was based off of a manga, and also that because they went the live action route and not the animated route. Here's the thing. Had they done a high quality animated version, I know they've already done an anime, but an animated movie, I think that one probably could have done even better, because I think American audiences are more open to seeing that type of a movie. That being said, I think it's an issue more so with there being I look at my own school, for example. There's a small group of kids that are open to things like manga and anime compared to the rest of the school, where if they saw that, they'd be like, oh, that's stupid. It's a sad thing, and it's a part of the American problem, but that is what I think about that. So Carlos Crespin, thank you for that super chat. Zen says, original Captain Marvel was the first one to beat Thanos, so we might see it with Carol. God, please, no. Gannison, no, you are awesome. All right, guys, so that is going to be a wrap for me on this episode. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Seriously, you guys are all amazing. You give me life. You give me energy, even when I'm feeling sick, even when I'm losing my voice. You are the ones that give me the strength and the willpower to go out and to speak to you guys every single night. And as I said at the very beginning of the video, I think there is still a lot more that needs to be revealed about Captain Marvel before we have any idea where it lands, monetarily speaking. Again, from the very beginning, as I said, this had the biggest, as far as release dates in various countries, the biggest help possible of any MCU film, essentially guaranteeing it a gigantic foreign market release. It had a very generic domestic release with a very poor, compared to others, money to box office, money to theater ratio. And I think both of these factors are going to eventually lead to a drop, a big drop in the domestic market, and even worse, a major, possibly catastrophic drop in the foreign market. Cannot wait to see it. We'll find out for ourselves. We'll know if this has legs by next weekend. And at that point, if it's very low, ooh, man, we can have some very, very fun speculation. And I cannot wait for the articles to come out. If it indeed does have legs and doesn't drop off too much, well, then at that point, we can sit back and say, all right, well, you're making money, but you've also kind of ruined your franchise in the process. So, Gannison, you have a good night. Every single other person has a good night. Dion said it best, we are Asgard. Such a true statement. It's not just me. It's all of you as well. I am just a person speaking. It takes all of you guys to make Asgard complete. You were all amazing and beautiful people. Seriously, have a wonderful evening. Be kind and good to each other. Show some love to those around you. And as always, guys, please stay honest. Stay truthful. Be true to who you are. Don't let anyone shut you down. Don't let anyone shut you up. And most importantly, don't ever let anyone try and make you act like anything other than yourself. Have a wonderful evening, everybody, and God bless.